Howdy all, welcome to the first official episode of Goose Talks Wrestling and the Goose Talks Wrestling podcast. Obviously recording them simultaneously. Great start. And we are doing both at the same time, so they're both going to be edited the same, exactly like that. I just thought doing something different than my movie podcast, link in description. I'll be doing, pretty much the same, but I'll be doing video for the Goose Talks Wrestling channel, as I'll be doing the podcast every week, and also be doing a few little short videos here and there in terms of news and results, reviews, etc., etc. Sorry if I'm ranting to begin the video. This is my first ever episode of Goose Talks Wrestling, so we will get to the Elimination Chamber 2024 preview and predictions right now. I think it's important to discuss the Raw results today, as they kind of really set up some big things for the upcoming pay-per-view, PLE, whatever you want to talk about. We're never going to get used to PLE. We'll get into the results. So we'll just blast through it. Gunther versus Jay in a really good match. This is an interesting one. We've seen it happen with Roman like a million times and other champions, but this is a time where Jay pretty much had Gunther beat, just like LA Knight had Roman beat in their title match, but interference, blah, blah, blah. And Gunther won by a roll-up, so this is something really important to think about. It might not really mean a lot. It might just they didn't want to put Jay down too much with him taking the pin in a roll-up's kind of like a quick, easy way to do that. But when you're having a champion like Gunther, he's only lost once from a count-out and maybe a DQ, but definitely count-out against Chad Gable. So I do find this interesting that he won by a roll-up, and he had pretty much been beaten if it wasn't for Jimmy ringing the bell. A different way to do like a distraction. Struggle to find the word there. To find a distraction, ringing the bell prematurely. The ref didn't call it, so it doesn't count like the match was over or anything. Jay attacks Jimmy, goes for frog splash again. Gunther knees up, roll up, wins. That might not mean anything, but obviously this is setting up Jimmy versus Jay for WrestleMania, so that means Jay isn't going to dethrone Gunther. In the meantime, I don't think. I really don't see Gunther losing this before WrestleMania or even at WrestleMania. So people thought maybe Jay would win and they would do an Intercontinental title at WrestleMania between Jay and Jimmy, but it doesn't need it, and it also means Gunther has to lose on Raw. If it was the match was Elimination Chamber, if Gunther could travel, I'd assume he would have been in the chamber for the heavyweight title anyway, title shot. But that obviously isn't happening. What this might mean in the future is Gunther doesn't lose at WrestleMania. To whoever he's facing, he doesn't lose. He retains the Intercontinental title. Maybe we see Jay and Gunther a little bit down the line, maybe like a month or two after. I don't see Gunther losing in Germany, only because it's kind of like a second home to him, really, after Austria, because he got big and did a lot of his work in Germany, and he's got a big fan base there. Maybe they cut back to this and be like, hey, you only beat me by roll-up, with a distraction, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. There's always a slight possibility Jay could dethrone Gunther, but I thought maybe because Jimmy and Jay hadn't really done anything in the last few months. We saw them start the Royal Rumble together, but that was about it. They didn't eliminate each other. Nothing else really happened other than Jimmy doing some like silly, heelish antics, which I thought was a bit stupid. So this didn't come out of nowhere, but a lot of people, myself included, are like, there's probably only a 50% chance that Jay and Jimmy happens at WrestleMania now. Seems like they put it on the back burner, but they clearly put it on the back burner to kind of catch fans off guard a little bit, I guess. So, yeah, that's all I'll really touch on there. It's a shame we're not getting Gunther at Elimination Chamber, by the way. I think it's weird not having him on pay-per-view, but it is what it is. Then we have Drew McIntyre defeated Cody Rhodes by pinfall, but obviously that was a distraction. He got hit with a Samoan spike by Solo Sikoa. Ref didn't see it. Drew McIntyre hit the Claymore, pin. This was the best outcome that we could have gotten. I didn't like this match happening in the first place. I'm like, this is very risky. You're having Cody Rhodes, who's main eventing WrestleMania, up against Drew, who is most likely going to be the contender for the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania. We'll touch on that later. So this was a very, very ballsy and risky match to do because you could accidentally bury one of them or both of them. It's a shit match, but I think Drew needed the win. After them just continuing to bury him. The World Heavyweight title, saying he's lost to Seth multiple times, hasn't won it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, Drew's clearly going to win the Elimination Chamber, and you're going to bury this dude continuously. So even if it was interference or not, he beat Cody Rhodes via pinfall. Good win, looks good for him. Doesn't bury Cody at all because he got hit with the spike. Reminiscent of WrestleMania last year. So yeah, this was good match. Wasn't anything to write home about, but it did protect both of them, which I liked. And a bit of a surprise, we had the last chance battle royal. We knew that someone was coming in last minute as a surprise, because why else would you do a battle royal, whereas the men's didn't have one? They all just had the equal amount of numbers for the qualifying. So I thought it was going to be Jade, because I'd heard rumors. I also saw the leaked picture of the women's elimination chamber, and you just saw the silhouettes and it did look like Jade with her hair and whatnot. Clearly wasn't, because Raquel Rodriguez made her return after quite a lengthy period of being out. Probably not as long as Liv. I think Liv was 6 months. I don't think Raquel was quite as long. So this is a big moment. Again, I will touch on this without giving all my predictions away, just for the Raw results. But this has big implications for the Elimination Chamber now. Jade coming in didn't, because I wouldn't have picked Jade to win it. It would have been great to see her on another pay-per-view, but I think we're probably waiting till WrestleMania, or most likely the Raw after WrestleMania. My guess is now we didn't get her this episode. Nia Jax, Rhea Ripley, they were interviewed remotely, built up their match for Elimination Chamber, obviously. I guess not randomly now. We're going to expect this in the future now that UFC and WWE are now sibling companies, so the crossovers will happen. Michael Chandler called out Conor McGregor. I'm not really into UFC anymore. Lost touch. I was diehard MMA, Bellator, UFC. I'm just lost interest. No fighters I really enjoy watching or anything like that now. But yeah, that was that. All the women in the Elimination Chamber match were cutting promos on each other, all took their turns, blah, 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 interrupting each other, the normal shenanigans. Nia Jax came out and cleaned house, destroyed everyone to make her obviously look like an absolute monster for this weekend, without burying the other women either. Then we had Chad Gable defeated Ivar. Hopefully this is the last of the feud between these two groups. But I don't think the matches have been great, don't get me wrong, except for maybe the ones that Maxine Dupree's in. She can't wrestle. I really like her. I think her character work and promos and talking is actually really good, but they need to stop throwing her under the bus and stop having Michael Cole fucking bury her on commentary every week. I'm over it. And he's also burying Valhalla with the stupid antlers bullshit and just making her seem like a joke, where she's meant to be this mysterious, scary type character, kind of like Nikki Cross used to be. But yeah, I think Michael Cole's one of the GOATs, but his commentary work has been a bit bad lately. Also, I think him and what's his face are just toxic for each other. Pat McAfee, name just escaped me. Him and Pat McAfee just are bad for each other. They're just toxic. They get along. Obviously, they're friends. They like each other, and I like them both individually, but together, not as much. My favorite team at the moment is Wade Barrett and Corey Graves. I think Corey's doing a good job transitioning into more kind of like a tweener play-by-play commentator, not so much just his heel persona. So I think he's doing a good job. Anyway, Chad Gable, there still is a possibility he's the one. Maybe he doesn't dethrone Gunther, but I think there's a big possibility he's one that challenges Gunther at WrestleMania, because they've kind of kept him quiet. Not in a bad way. He's been around, but he hasn't been in matches because he usually faces people that he kind of has to lose against because they're like, high-level people. I think nothing against Eric, but I want Ivar to go out and he can still be the same character. People seem to have a problem and not being able to take him seriously because he's a Viking character. I think it's really cool. They do a good job of not making them like silly Vikings. Like, we had the Highlanders and, those types of characters they made silly, but they seem to take it very seriously, like the entrances. And Ivar is incredibly athletic for his build. We've seen him and Bronson Reed have some really good matches for two big meaty boys. So I think I'm hoping this is the last we see of these two feuding. Again, nothing against them. It's just this has really dragged on for a long time. They clearly didn't have anything else for them to do, but clearly wanted them on TV, which is also great. But I hope now that Chad won this via submission with an ankle lock, I really hope that this is building Chad to something. And if it's not against Gunther at WrestleMania, maybe it's another tag thing. I hope not. I hope Tozawa and Otis kind of stick together with the Alpha Academy tag team. Chad, I guess, can kind of still be a part of the Alpha Academy, but I kind of want him to be a bit more of a serious. He can still do the shush stuff because that's over. It's funny. People love it now. It went from being annoying to being really over, which happens a lot. It's quite interesting. But yeah, that's that. So I've talked about the Raw results because they do have implications to the Elimination Chamber. Now we'll jump into the show. So this is the first show in Australia since, what do they called it? The Greatest Showdown, or I don't even know what they called it, to be honest. It was one of those silly titles that I didn't like. Back in 2018, back when Buddy Murphy, the Iconics, was still with WWE, they are not. And I think people, including me, a lot of Aussies are disappointed that we don't have a lot of Aussie representation on the pay-per-view. You have Rhea Ripley, obviously she's going to be in the main event. I'll be surprised if that match doesn't main event because she's going to get a massive, massive home country ovation, which is great, against Nia Jax, who actually, funny enough, was born in Australia. She only was here for like 2 weeks, but she was still born here, which is quite interesting. Technically, 2 Aussies against each other in the main event in Perth Elimination Chamber. You have Bronson Reed, who I'm still shocked, really shocked, is not in the Elimination Chamber, considering they've been protecting him. They've been making him look like an absolute beast. He only really loses to people in the main event scene, honestly. So, big surprise. There's rumours that his wife is due to give birth. I haven't heard anything official, nothing from him, nothing from a WWE. He kind of cut like a babyface promo after he lost, saying that he let his country down, he's disappointed, let his friends and family down, that he's not going to be able to perform in his home country. I find it odd because that was like a babyface promo. Like, if you're a heel, you wouldn't have been saying that shit. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to fucking go home to my shit country. Anyway, so interesting. Are they leaning Bronson more into the babyface thing now that he's going to say, I missed out my home country, blah, 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 but he lost clean, so I don't really know. I thought it was really interesting. Indy Hartwell, I thought maybe they could have built up. All she had to do was build up of 3 weeks, get some wins, some really good matches, and she could have been an entrant, but the chamber is stacked. I understand that. Then you have Grayson Waller, who isn't in a match, but he's also going to have probably a pretty big program with Seth and Cody. So at least he's featured, but he'll probably get booed because he's from Sydney. He always talks about how good Sydney is. So I dare say he's going to do the typical heel thing and say that Perth is shit because they don't want him cheered. They want him as like the dirtiest, scumbaggiest heel. So unfortunately, and a lot of good Aussie talent are elsewhere, in like TNA and AEW. So I can't complain too much. I hope AEW comes to Australia, does a stadium show. Another thing in Perth, a lot of people, including myself, like if this was pretty much anywhere other than Perth, maybe Darwin, I would have gone. Just the length of travel, the distance it is from everywhere else, the pricing for flights, accommodation, just living costs in general, food, drinks, everything. They're still trying to sell tickets. I don't think it's going to be a sellout show. There's going to be 30,000 plus, so still a really fucking good crowd, don't get me wrong. But if this was in Melbourne or Sydney, maybe even Brisbane or Adelaide, had the capacity to have big crowds too. Adelaide Oval can fit 60,000, and that's for seating. So if they're also doing seating on the ground, they'll also block off a bit of seating with the stage and whatnot. So it still would have been at least 55 to 60,000 in Adelaide. Same as in Melbourne. They could have done it at Marvel Stadium, which is 60,000 plus, or they could have done an MCG, which is 100,000. Maybe they didn't want to go too big. I get MCG, but you could have done Marvel Stadium. Same capacity as Optus Stadium in Perth, Adelaide Oval in Adelaide. Probably Brisbane doesn't quite have the stadiums for that capacity, but they have 35, 40,000 if I'm not mistaken. So I think they would have sold more tickets, would have been a bigger event if it was in either of those 3 cities. Sydney or Melbourne, probably the 2, then Adelaide maybe. But hey, hopefully in the future we get more here. Or maybe even AEW comes here. It would just be great. So hopefully they continue to sell tickets. Again, CM Punk being out, Cody Rhodes and Seth obviously out because they're being protected. Seth due to injury, Cody because he doesn't really want to be put in a position where he loses or gets injured in a match, which is fair enough. The Rock and Roman apparently aren't going to make an appearance, even though Western Australia themselves offered to pay Rock a couple of million to make an appearance. People are saying, maybe they'll secretly make an appearance and it'll shock everyone. At this point, they haven't sold out the show, they would have advertised Rock. They just would have by now. They're not taking that bet that he rocks up and they could have sold another 10,000 tickets. It's not going to happen. But anyway, enough about that. Perth, don't get me wrong, Perth is always a great crowd when it comes to footy and cricket. And also they support their basketball teams and their soccer teams really well. So in terms of Perth themselves, that I think a lot of the audience will be Perth residents and people from WA. And they're also Victorians. They travel. They're probably the best sporting fans in Australia. They do travel. So do other states as well. I mean, I'm South Australian. I'm saying that Victorians travel because they just do. They're very passionate about it. So if you have a lot of passionate wrestling fans from Victoria, they'll probably travel over. People that can afford it. It's very expensive here. A bit like in America to travel state to state. It's just, it gets very hard. Unfortunately, I always said I wanted to be at a live WWE event when they came back post-COVID. But unfortunately, too expensive. Anyway, we'll get into the matches. So we have the tag team titles, Judgment Day and New Catch Republic, which I'm still not really used to. Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. I like British Strong Style, but it is what it is. This looks like it's going to be a really, really good match. We've seen Finn and Damien probably not defend as much as I thought, but they have defended. They have had some really good matches with DIY specifically. Looked really, really good. And you have the R-Truth stuff that's obviously building to R-Truth and The Miz defeating them at WrestleMania, we hope. Everyone wants R-Truth to have his WrestleMania moment. I really want that so much. He's just been a workhorse. He's been the comedic act. It'd be good for him to get rewarded inside the ring. And also The Miz as well. Let's not forget about The Miz have his WrestleMania moment because he's been a workhorse and his pay-per-view record is just dismal because they always just seem to use him to put other people over. It's kind of like another hardcore Holly, really, who was really talented in ring. And I'm not comparing The Miz and Hardcore Holly, by the way, so don't fucking freak out in the comments, okay? They're both very different, but I mean in the terms of both being with the company for a long, long, long time, both really good in-ring performers. Holly was probably better than The Miz, but Miz is one of the greatest on the mic of all time. Fucking at me in the comments, I don't care. He's one of the best promo cutters ever in history. So that's obviously going to happen at WrestleMania. So what I'm saying is Judgment Day is going to defeat New Catch Republic here. If there's shenanigans involved, I don't know. The Judgment Day don't tend to rely on that 100% of the time, unlike Roman. So it could go either way. If they want to protect New Catch Republic, Dominic might get involved here and JD do a distraction, get some more heat with the Australian crowd. So, there's that match. Unfortunately, at the moment, we only have 4 matches, which I think is quite odd, but there's also going to be that Grayson Waller segment as well, which might take 20 minutes, half an hour. I'm not sure. It depends on what happens. It's obviously, they're building up to be a big thing. So, who knows what happens. But I find it really odd. There was no match added today. So, unless they add a last-minute show on SmackDown, but I find that unlikely only because SmackDown has already been recorded. Because they'll obviously be travelling to Australia in that time. So, we're obviously sticking with 4 matches unless a match happens on the night. Maybe, I don't know. I don't see what could happen that night. Unless they get one of the Aussies like Bronson Reed, he just rocks up and says, I want a fucking match. You guys screwed me. This is my country. That only happens if he's turning babyface, though. So, we're heading to the women's Elimination Chamber match, which looks to be the match of the night. Just, it's so stacked, but also it's not as clear who's going to win. And I know that Becky's been cutting all these promos on Rhea. She cut a promo face-to-face with it at the press conference. To me, it just seems like it's too obvious. And I know you have to build story, blah, 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 but we've got 5 weeks from the end of Elimination Chamber to WrestleMania. 5 weeks is plenty of time to create and push a really good story. They just didn't with Charlotte and Rhea last year. They had the time, they just didn't do it. So, I don't mean everyone's picking Becky to be the winner. I think they're more likely leaning towards Becky and Nia Jax at WrestleMania. At this point, I don't see Nia Jax missing out on WrestleMania. And the question begs, okay, what else is she doing then? What else would she be doing if she's not facing Becky Lynch? And to me, the story is her and Becky because she beat Becky at the start of the year. They have that history from ages ago when she broke her nose, etc., etc. Becky hasn't beat her since Nia's been back. Becky lost in the Royal Rumble when everyone thought she was going to win that. I didn't. And so I think we're just leaning towards Nia and Becky for WrestleMania. I truly do. So I don't see Becky winning this. Although, if Becky does win, there is a not really huge story there, but there is the history between her and Rhea. They've been cutting promos on each other the last month or two. They've been kept away from each other, which is also a big indicator we could get those two at WrestleMania. That Becky was kept completely away from her for most of last year, being with Trish Stratus and Zoe Stark, and obviously being with Nia Jax as well. So there is a possibility. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Then you have Bianca Belair, which, again, a lot of people are picking Bianca just because they don't see anything else for her at WrestleMania, which I kind of agree with. It's not going to be Jade. There's no way they build up Bianca versus Jade for 5 weeks, only because, and I just said 5 weeks is plenty of time to build a story, but not when Jade hasn't officially debuted yet. So she's had one match at the Royal Rumble and that's it. There's no way they're building a feud, a big, like, almost pay-per-view main event match between these two. So that's another thing goes towards Bianca, is could it be Bianca versus Rhea because they're two big, huge, like, dominant forces in WWE? Or do we see Bianca just has a program with another female wrestler and she gets put over? Does she have a thing with maybe Tiffany Stratton? They build out that story up over 5 weeks and just have that match at WrestleMania? I'm not sure. Again, I'll put Bianca on the same level as Becky, which is kind of in the middle to the top of chance of winning. Then you have Liv Morgan. Liv's an interesting case. So she's been gone for 4 to 6 months, and she was gone for a little bit before the second injury. And then she came back, got injured again, was out for about 6 months. So I don't definitely see her winning, but there was also a spot where she does win. Because she's probably got the best story with Rhea overall. Out of these six, she has the best story. Raquel Rodriguez has a good story as well, but Liv was injured by Rhea. They have the history of being past tag team champions, and Rhea turned on her and turned heel and attacked her. So there is a lot of story, a couple of years worth of story between these two. So I have Liv towards the top of chance of winning this. Tiffany Stratton's probably the only one I can guarantee isn't winning, just because storyline makes no sense, and she's also brand new to the main roster. So I don't see her winning at all. Although I do see her putting on an absolute fucking clinic in this match because she's talented. She's so young. She's barely been wrestling for so long. They're going to strap a rocket to Tiffany Stratton. If she's not winning Money in the Bank this year, which my tip is at this point she is going to win Money in the Bank, she's winning the Royal Rumble next year. Huge calls. I know everyone's saying Jade, but I don't think Jade needs the Royal Rumble. They're already building her up as a main event caliber star, so I think she'll already be in the title picture next year come Royal Rumble 2025. Tiffany Stratton's going to look really good, maybe even take a pin in this. Sorry, not take a pin as in receive one, but she's going to get a pin over someone. Then you have Raquel Rodriguez. She was the shock entrant in the last minute Battle Royal to get the opportunity at the Elimination Chamber. I think there's a high possibility Raquel wins because she's got the story with Rhea. She's kind of been the one that Rhea hasn't really been able to beat properly and clean and look dominant against, like everyone else she's faced for the title. So there's that this could have been Nia or Raquel, but they've gone a different way with Nia to kind of keep her away from Rhea at the moment until Elimination Chamber this weekend. And that obviously that storyline is going to end at Elimination Chamber. So again, what do you do with Raquel? Do you turn her heel against Liv and they have a little match at WrestleMania? But they're not really a tag team anymore, so I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. This is the problem, is a lot of these make sense, but then also it's like, okay, what are you doing with the others at WrestleMania? Because there's always a big question. But we're at this point now, we're so stacked with the roster and the superstars that we have that we might just have another Bobby Lashley from last year and he miss out on WrestleMania. I know that was a last-minute thing because of, unfortunately, Bray being sick. We now know how serious it was. That they just didn't want to do a last-minute story with him. He won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal instead. They did something with him over the course of that weekend, did an entrance, blah, blah, blah. We're at this point where people are unfortunately going to miss out on WrestleMania, and I prefer that than just be chucked in a tag team for another tag team showcase. Those matches were great, but I just don't like them just throwing teams together for that type of shit. I just don't. So I think my final answer is going to be Liv. It's probably a bit of a stretch because we have four. Honestly, I haven't even touched on Naomi. I skipped over Naomi. My apologies. Naomi's another one like Tiffany that isn't a chance to win, only because no story, hasn't been back long enough, blah, blah, blah. I think she's going to look great. She's going to be kind of like the John Morrison, Kofi Kingston, Rob Van Dam, Montez Ford, the rest of you put in there to do these crazy spots, look good, but not a chance to win. I think that's going to be Naomi. Great to have her back. Again, question, what's she doing at WrestleMania? I don't know. This is why they should introduce a mid-card title and get rid of the tag team titles. Because you think if they just break up all these tag teams, focus on them as solo stars, you have so many wrestlers you can focus on for the main event and for the mid-card women's. They just got so much talent. The tag team division just means nothing. Just scrap them. Mid-card title for women's, please. Okay, now we are heading to the final prediction. Like I said earlier, I think it's going to be Liv. Just in my opinion, I think the story's there. Liv's over. She's a really credible babyface. Her character's changed a little bit since coming back. She's has a bit more edge to her. Probably a bit, chance to be more dirty in a match. My pick's her, but there's 4 big question marks that could win. Becky, Bianca, Liv, and Raquel all have big chances. I think Raquel, she's been away for a while. She's not that over with the crowd, unlike Liv. She's over, but Liv's way more over, a lot more popular. So for them to go with Raquel over Liv would tell me that they're looking for just a big, dominant, muscular match between Rhea Ripley and Raquel. Which match would I like to see the most out of these and Rhea Ripley? Storyline, Liv and Rhea for sure, and I think they both can go in the ring. I think they have a great match. They also have that story of them being the 2 longest and final 2 in the Royal Rumble last year, and Liv was also runner-up this year. So I think storyline-wise, those 2. In terms of wrestling, any of them. I would love to see any 6 of these women go up against Rhea in terms of wrestling. So I'll leave it there. We have Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. Look, we all know Rhea's going to win. There's probably 0% chance Nia's winning this. There's no way that one Rhea loses at Elimination Chamber before WrestleMania after her historic run she's had since winning the title. And I just don't see Nia being champion. I think she's going to be in the main event picture for majority of the year. Not always battling for it, but battling for an opportunity for the title, definitely. Rhea wins this. I think it's going to be a good match. I think this probably goes 10, 15 minutes, bit of a build-up. Rhea struggles to kind of wrestle Nia, but then she power slams her or does something athletic and shows off her strength. But yeah, obviously going Rhea Ripley this one. There's not really a lot to talk about in this match. This is kind of just a filler match until we see who she's facing at WrestleMania. The men's Elimination Chamber. So I was talking about the women being stacked. This is also stacked. And it got to the point where there's a lot of people that were disappointed weren't in this match. Sami Zayn and AJ Styles being the two big ones that are left out. And then you have Bronson Reed for the Australian side of things. 3 really big names. There's other people that aren't in it as well. Would have loved to have seen Ivar in this just to see him move around the ring and being in the chamber itself. But storyline-wise, that doesn't make any sense. Would have loved to see Miz in this, but you can't have everyone, and that's good. What does that tell us? That tells us that we're being treated to a rare time in wrestling. Well, rare time definitely in the last decade or even 2. That we're like, oh, wow, like so-and-so's missed out on the Elimination Chamber. They're not going to be in the pay-per-view. I mean, that's great. Times are gone of us being like, oh, there's only real 2 superstars in this match and the rest are all just fillers to get pinned. Like, this is probably a bit more easy cut dry than the women's. Drew, I'll just touch on it to begin with. He's first on my notes. That I think Drew's going to win this. Makes the most sense. He's over as fuck as a heel. This is the best work that he's ever done as a heel. Oh, as a wrestler, and he's a heel. And he's a 2-time fucking champion. And he was a great champion. He was the face of WWE all through COVID. So to say that he's in the run of his life just tells you how good and how much he's improved, especially with his promos. It just makes the most sense. He wins dirty. That's cool. It's heel. But his promos and the way he talks, you can't help but get over with the crowd because he's talking fact. Like, he's a heel that makes sense. And that's what we want. We've been deprived of that for heels that make sense. And he just makes sense. So I hope that he's the winner of this. There's a lot of people in this I would love to see, but he makes the most sense, Drew. Randy Orton, I think he's going to look really, really good in this in terms of I think he's going to get 1 or maybe even 2 pins. I think he's going to look like a monster. Again, I don't know what his plans are going to be for WrestleMania. I really don't know what they're going to do with Randy. And I know they have 5 weeks to build up a story, but who? Because LA Knight's going to be with AJ Styles. Do we see Randy Logan for the US title? Mate, do they build a story in this match? Maybe. That's what I see happening. Is we're not going to get Kevin Owens' rematch against Logan Paul at WrestleMania, but that's also a possibility. There's multiple things for Logan here. As United States champion, he's got a lot of different avenues he can go down. In terms of Randy and KO, I just don't know. People are saying they want KO to turn on Sammy so they can have a match against each other at WrestleMania. I don't like that. I'm sick of KO turning heel on Sammy most of the time, and he's also turned heel on other people like Chris Jericho, etc. I want KO to stay who he is. I like he's a bit of a tweener, probably leans more to the face category, but he's kind of like a no-nonsense, Steve Austin type baby face character, which I just love. But Randy, there is a world where he could win this. Not much of a story between him and Seth, though, unless Damien cashes in before WrestleMania, but I don't see that happening. That's a discussion for a different time. So I think Randy's not a chance to win. Then you have Bobby Lashley, my favourite wrestler, for people that don't know. He's no chance at winning this. There's going to be some antics with Karrion Kross and his stable that's setting up a WrestleMania match between them, like a six-man tag, I would say, is my guess. Bobby's going to look like a monster in this, though, because obviously they're always trying to protect Bobby, because he's a guy they can call up when they need him to be that monster. Then you have Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is a tough one. I just don't know what they're going to do with him at WrestleMania. He's kind of a guy that you don't want left off, but maybe he just does, unless there's like a multi-man ladder match for a title, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year, unfortunately. We all love those matches. Yeah, KO, Bobby Lashley, they're not chances to win this, but they're going to look good. I think everyone's in the match is going to look good. Obviously, they have to eat a pin at some point. Logan Paul is the guy that I spoke about earlier, like Naomi, that like wrestlers like Kofi, John Morrison, he's in this match to look good. He's a big name. He was one of the first names advertised for the Elimination Chamber. So, yeah, look, he's not going to win. He's probably going to get a pin at least. Probably on KO maybe, or maybe Randy, whoever he's building the match against. Maybe it's against LA Knight. I think it's going to be LA Knight and AJ Styles at WrestleMania. That's what they're building to, but we all thought that LA Knight was going to be the guy to dethrone Logan at WrestleMania. So LA Knight, another guy. I almost see LA Knight being in the final too. I feel as though he might be the runner-up just because WWE is still trying to push this guy as much as they can without putting a title on him, really. He's selling merch, so they obviously don't want to fumble the bag on that. So, yeah, I see, unfortunately, Bobby and KO being among the first eliminated. But I hope we get one of those matches where we at least get 4 or 5 in the ring at once. Not like they used to book Elimination Chamber 10 years ago where they'd start with 2, they'd be the Iron Men, 3 and 4 would get pinned before 5 and 6 are even in the match. I don't want that. I want as many people as we can. That's why we watch these matches, all right? So my pick is Drew. I think this is definitely an easy one to predict over the women's, for sure. I still think the women's is going to be the best match of the night. This definitely has the capabilities. Look at the names in it. So, yeah. So that's the Elimination Chamber predictions and preview. I'm looking forward to this. I know a lot of Americans are complaining about the time that this starts for them, which is about 4 or 5 a.m. Look, it doesn't happen a lot for you guys, so they know how us Aussies and Europeans feel. And it's probably easier for us Aussies and New Zealanders and stuff that we only have to, watch it at, 10:30, 11 a.m., whereas poor Europeans get screwed over. So I think this is going to be late for me in South Australia. This is going to start about 9 p.m. because Perth, obviously a couple of hours behind, so it's going to be prime time for them. So it's going to be a late show for me. 4 matches tells me there's all going to be long matches. Maybe not the Ripley-Nia one, but the other 3 I think are going to be really decent barn-burning matches. We're going to have a long thing with Grayson Waller effect. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, make sure to click the links in the description. That's all my podcast links, my social media stuff, and also my movie podcast and channel. If you like this, please hit that follow/subscribe button on whatever you're listening to or watching this on. Please comment down below your predictions. I'd love to compare with other people and all that. And make sure you put notifications on whatever you listen to me on, if it's Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Audible, whatever it is. Appreciate it. Make sure to follow me on X/Twitter. Hopefully get some hot take videos and all that in the future. But yeah, thanks very much, guys. This has been Goose, and I love talking wrestling. And let's maybe get that 3 count next time. Catch you later.